While it's surprising to see DLC in a Pokémon game, Sword and Shield's expansion pass is definitely preferable to the traditional model of following up the latest game with another full-price version just to deliver some new content and a few improvements. The Isle of Armor, the expansion pass's first of 2 bundled DLC editions, provides an entertaining reason to revisit the Galar region with over 100 returning Pokémon, plus a few new ones, and an enjoyable new wild area. But this island getaway is otherwise pretty bare bones and disappointingly brief. The Isle of Armor represents an entirely new free-roaming wild area in Sword and Shield. Like the wild area in the main Sword and Shield campaign, it's complete with an excess of untamed Pokémon wandering around, dozens of dens for max raid battles, and plenty of items to find and collect. While it may not be as big as the original wild area in overall acreage, the Isle of Armor more than makes up for it in its diversity and in how well it uses the space. You'll find tangled forests filled with Tangela and oceans where Sharpedos pursue you at frightening speeds. Even if it can all be seen in a few short hours, it's undoubtedly an entertaining trek that does a great job of making the world feel alive and more fleshed out than the wild area from the base game. The Isle of Armor unfortunately doesn't mark the return of the complete national Pokédex, but it does significantly expand the Pokémon available in Sword and Shield with more than 100 returning pocket monsters. It's a great selection, including some sorely needed additions like Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and most of all, Licky, which is obviously the best Pokemon ever conceived. I mean, just look at that majestic son of a Bellsprout. Unfortunately, Isle of Armor doesn't use its new, lovingly crafted area very effectively, as the DLC's campaign is just a few short missions that can be finished in a couple of hours, most of which are uninspired fetch quests. You'll run around looking for mushrooms and fighting off Slowpoke on a decidedly low-stakes adventure that feels like a fairly by-the-numbers RPG side quest. There are certainly some highlights, like the part where you need to befriend and level up a brand new and pretty darn lovable Cubfu to unlock one of its 2 legendary evolutions, but with no real narrative holding it all together, and Pokemon in the wild almost universally capping out at level 60 so you breeze through the whole thing, it all feels very shallow. It also doesn't help that one of the DLC's chief characters, your new rivals, Clara for Sword players and Avery for Shield, are both incredibly annoying and written off largely as a punchline rather than anything resembling a real threat. The other 2 major characters, a dojo master named Mustard and his wife Honey, are amusing, but they don't get enough time in the spotlight to really shine. That said, Isle of Armor introduces a few new mechanics that do a lot to break the mold of Sword and Shield in positive ways. A welcome item called Max Soup allows you to Gigantamax your Pokemon even if they weren't caught in a max raid battle. A surprising new base building mechanic lets you upgrade Mustard's dojo by spending watts, unlocking helpful new services and items. And of course, there are plenty of cool new cosmetics, like clothes and bicycle skins. Sadly, there isn't a ton left to do once the campaign is over, aside from catching the island's plentiful returning Pokemon, though you'll now be able to do that with the Pokemon of your choice following you around the DLC areas, which is a nice cosmetic reward earned by progressing through the story. One of the main draws is restricted sparring, a challenging in-game mode that pits 3 of your Pokemon of the same type against 5 opposing trainers in a row, and then an endless onslaught of them after that. It's a creative new format, but is only appealing if you're looking to earn BP for the battle tower. There's also a boring side quest where you run around looking for 151 Diglets buried in the ground that's nightmarishly tedious, and hardly worth the various Alolan versions of Pokemon you get as a reward. The Isle of Armor is a solid first attempt at DLC in a Pokemon game, even if it's too short-lived to offer anything that feels like a truly substantial addition beyond the location itself. While the new wild area is beautifully crafted and the exciting selection of returning Pokemon are fun to catch, the shallow campaign feels like a waste of their full potential. For more Pokemon Sword and Shield, watch our review of the base game or a recent trailer of its DLC expansion pass. And of course, for everything else, make sure to keep it here on IGN.